It's a Metal Monday here on the Gary Harris Show. We like to do Metal Monday so we can get you up and cranking for another week. It's already been a lively show, and we're going to make it even livelier with my pal Scott Moore from iTalkSEC Radio and the Jay Barker Show. He joins us for his Monday college football recap. Scott, we've already got phone callers lined up to talk to you. We'll get to them in a moment. Hey, listen, callers, if you're holding, we'll get to you. I want to get the segment started off though with Scott myself. Good morning, Scott. How are you?
Hey, Gary. Good to talk to you, brother.
47-28, Alabama wins at Texas A&M, and good solid win. I think Alabama can play better, but at the same time, again, you win by 19 on the road. You'll take it. Your just observations from what you saw Saturday at Kyle Field and College Station.
Well, you were going to get Texas A&M's best shot, especially after a week off for them and for Alabama. So I thought Texas A&M probably played the best game they've played all year, and Alabama still gets a 19-point win on the road against a ranked team in the SEC. So I think this Alabama team and the fans and people really need to stop and smell the roses about what's going on here. You look around the landscape of college football. Georgia loses at home to an unranked team Saturday. And in college football, you just never know what's going to happen every week. And Alabama continues to go on the road. They're measured by a different standard. And, I mean, every single snap, every single play is scrutinized. And I think when you go on the road in October, when everything is trying to set yourself up for a November run, I think you take the good. You get out of that stadium and you go home with a W and you get ready for next week. So I saw a lot of good things Saturday, Gary. I thought the team played very, very well. I think the offense is coming along. Did they make a couple mistakes? Yeah. This team is judged differently than any other team in college football.
No doubt about it. No, absolutely no doubt about it. I mean, it's there'll be a lot of people that say, well, A&M, and I said I thought they would hold Alabama under 50. A&M loses by 19 in a lot of people's eyes. I think that, A&M fans are thinking that's a respectable loss because Alabama is gauged at a different level. Hey, let's go ahead. Jim's been holding for a while. Scott, we'll get to you too, or Tom, I'm sorry, we'll get to you too, but let's go to Jim right now on the Bud Light hotline. He wants to visit with Scott. Good morning, Jim.
Hey, it seems like Alabama, if you're a defense coordinator, you have to love Alabama trying to run the ball on 2nd and 10. I mean, because usually it ends up 3rd and 8, 3rd and 12, and Tua's only got one chance to keep the drive going. So I wish they quit, 2nd long.
Yeah, Jim.
Let Tua throw the ball.
I'm gonna let Scott chime in, and I hear what you're saying, and I know sometimes you think why don't you just throw it every down? But you got to run the football some, Jim. You just do, and I know at times it appears they could throw it every down and couldn't be stopped, but Scott. And I hear what Jim's saying, and I know it's frustrating when it's 3rd and long, and you're thinking, well, if you're throwing it on 1st or 2nd down. But the truth of the matter is, Scott, you got to be able to run the football some in this league. You can't throw it every down. If you could, that's what they would do. They wouldn't have any running backs, right?
That's right. And plus, when some of these runs are coming off RPOs where the quarterback sees something, mm-hmm. and you make the decision, you go, okay, well, let's run it here because the box is stacked differently. Maybe you don't have 8 guys in the box. Maybe you got just 4 or 5. So, listen, runs are predicated on what the defense shows you, and it's the quarterback's decision to make that. And then there's some that are designed runs. So, again, Alabama's been great on 3rd down conversions this year. I mean, how many times did you see it Saturday? 3rd and 8, 3rd and 7. Even Gary Danielson said, hey, this is 3rd and long for Alabama. 3rd and long is 3rd and 10 plus, not 3rd and 6 and 3rd and 7. For Tua, it's more 3rd and short. So, listen, when you're gaining the yards that they're gaining, people forget all the yards that were gained in punt returns, the hidden yardage Saturday. So, the offense was extraordinarily productive Saturday. They just didn't have the yards that they normally get because Waddle was so great in the return game Saturday.
He was outstanding, and in fact, we'll get to the return game, and we'll get to the positive and the negatives from special teams here in just a little bit. But Jim, again, I'm not trying to get on you. I'm just saying that what Scott said is true too. A lot of these are RPOs, and Tua's making the read. But they did run it for 155 yards on 31 carries, Jim, for 5 yards a rush. I mean, that's not bad.
Yeah. Well, I know they got to run it sometime. I'm just saying if you run it on first down, if you pick up 4 or 5 yards, you can run it on second down, But when you run it, if he throws it incomplete on first, go ahead and throw 2 more passes.
Yeah.
Get 2 shots at it because they usually don't get nothing on second when they run the ball. Sometimes they lose a couple.
Yeah, I know. It's frustrating. But at times, like Scott says, maybe an RPO call and Tua may actually, hand off to Brian Robinson within the read of the play.
More thing.
Yeah.
On an interception now, when he threw the interception, Harris lost 1 yard on first down. He gains 2 on second, and at least third 9, and now I know he's going to throw it.
Yeah, though, I'll say this. Like I got a text during the game, no quarterback's perfect, and Tua is about as close as there is.
No. Hey, look.
No, I know you're not getting on Tua, and that's what I'm saying. But in that particular case, that was a bad decision to throw the football. I mean, there were defensive backs everywhere. He made a rare bad throw, whether it was 3rd and long or whatever the down was. That was a ball that should not have been thrown into that particular coverage, and he got it picked off. Hey, good call, Scott. Jim, good to hear from you. All right, buddy. Let's Scott, we'll get Tom on the other side of the break. Like I said, the phones are just they're lit up this morning. But let's go ahead and talk about special teams before we go to this break because the return game was phenomenal. If that punter kicker for A&M hadn't been the best tackling punter and kicker in the history of college football, they'd have had about 3 or 4 touchdowns. Now, maybe he's good at it because he gets to do it a lot. What did you think of Jimbo's decision to continue to punt to Waddle and kick to Ruggs? I couldn't quite figure that one out. If I'm an A&M fan, I'm saying, why do you keep kicking to these guys?
Yeah, they got the best punter in the country. I mean, that kid won the won the Red Guy Award last year, and he is absolutely fantastic. I know what they were hoping for. They were hoping to pin him, at one side of the. They love to kick to one side of the field, and try to cover as best they can. And listen, Waddle's going to make anybody. I don't care what kind of plan you have in your kicking game. Waddle's going to make anybody look bad because he's so elusive. He's got the best first step on a kick returner of anybody I've seen in Alabama since David Palmer. I mean, he's very similar to what the Deuce used to do. That you catch it and you take that one step, and that one step gets you loose. So I know he continued to kick it because they were trying for field position. They were also hoping Waddle would not be able to return any of these things. But listen, he was spectacular. They made a couple of incredible open field tackles, or Waddle would still be running. But, it was good to see Jalen Waddle break out in everything, special teams, receiving. He had a big day and very, very near to his hometown. I know that was important for him. And Alabama got him involved early, so it was much needed for, I think, the wide receiving corps to get one more boost out of a guy that's been a little bit quiet this year. And not anymore. That's not the case moving forward.
All right, Scott, let's get to our break. We'll come back on the other side with Tom and going to cover LSU, Florida, Georgia, South Carolina. We're going to stay on Bama for a little while longer. Plenty of college football talk for you here on the Gary Harris Show on Todd 100.9 FM. Keep it dialed in. Hey, and it is a busy Monday recapping Alabama 47, Texas A&M 28 with Scott Moore from iTalkSEC Radio and the Jay Barker Show. Tom, we'll get to you in just a second. I said I was going to finish on special teams. The positives for Alabama, clearly, Scott, the return game. It was phenomenal with Ruggs and Waddle. Both of us, kicked off pretty well, struggled with the place kicking again, and Skylar DeLong just, I don't know what to say. I do not want to pile on the young man because I know he's not trying to hit poor punts, and everybody made a big deal about Saban kind of undressing him there at the end of the game, which and for me, I'm going to side with Skylar DeLong there. I don't know what good jumping on him after another bad punt does. I mean, you can't. Obviously, they can't get this thing fixed. I mean, he can't. He is not punting the football to the caliber that you have to have a punter punt at this level, and it has not cost them yet. I understand that, but somewhere it could. We saw a story about the walk-on P. Ryan. We know Reichard can punt. Maybe he'll punt when he comes back, but they've got to get this. Whether it's Skylar DeLong or somebody else, Scott, you can't keep punting the football like this and not have it bite you somewhere along the line, right?
Listen, field position, no matter, even though we see these high-flying offenses that are scoring all these points, and that's just the game that we're in now, field position and flipping the field is vitally important. And, you're going to have to eventually be able to kick the ball down the field for more than a 35-yard average. I mean, you just can't do it. So you got to get back on the practice field, and you've got to find a guy that can get the job done. Because up to this point, it has not been good. And every player on any football team, if you're a starter or you're a backup, you get challenged every week in practice. And if you don't perform well, guess what happens? You don't play until you get it right. So I think it's early in the year still. We're halfway through it, but you're in the stretch of the season now where you got to play perfect every week. And, I mean, it's offense, defense, and special teams. Special teams is listed for a reason because you have to be – how many times we heard that old familiar tune, you got to be sound in the kicking game? Man, there's nothing more true than that. You got to have a good kicking game, man, to go win national championships and SEC titles and beat big teams on your schedule moving forward. Kicking game's got to get shored up, Gary. That is an understatement. I mean, all three phases of it, punting, place kicking, and field goal kicking has got to get shored up. Yeah, missing an extra point, doinking one off the uprights and extra points, that's unacceptable moving forward, man. Consistency in performance is preached by this staff and Coach Saban all the time, and that certainly applies to the kickers as well.
Indeed it does. Reichard hopefully will be back this week, right? I mean, I think right now he's the best option in place kicking and punting. It seems to me.
I think yeah. See, listen, when he went down, it's the next guy up, and obviously the next guy. And this isn't a knock on Bulovas. It's certainly not a knock on Skylar DeLong, but the best kicker on the team has been injured now for going on a month. So they need to get him back. They brought him in to do all three, and that's what needs to happen. So hopefully Will Reichard is getting closer to being better, and that should solve all the issues moving forward. Talent will certainly help here, and getting that young man healthy is paramount here in a championship run as you head to November.
Indeed it is, because you want to be at your best when you get that stretch run, and everything needs to be hitting on all cylinders. All right, let's get to Tom. Josh, go ahead and punch him through if you don't mind. He's been waiting to talk with you. Scott, good morning, Tom.
I'd like to make a comment to you, Gary, about the punter, and then a comment to Scott as well. Start with the punter. I agree wholeheartedly with you. I've said it all along. I am totally embarrassed that Coach Saban continues to put that poor kid out there and let him punt. It's horrible.
It's not happening for him. You're right. It's just not happening for him.
Good leadership doesn't ask somebody to do something they can't do or won't do it, and the poor kid can't do it, and you're just embarrassing him to put him out there.
I'm Scott. I'm kind of agreeing with Tom here. I mean, you're 6 games in now, and I thought it was a bad look at the end of the game. I know you're coaching hard and you're coaching to win, but to jump on him when he's clearly struggling, Scott. I mean, I don't know that does any good. Do you?
Well, I've talked about a kicker's mentality anyway. These guys are different dudes, obviously, and listen, when things are going bad as a kicker, I've talked about this before. It's like a golf swing, man. When you get into a slump kicking the football, it becomes more mental than anything. You're on the road, 106,000 people. I think he's really struggled with the environments he's had to kick in. We've seen him not kick he didn't kick very well at South Carolina. And he obviously didn't kick well last week, too. Those are pretty tough environments to play in. So, listen, I think it's a fixable problem, but it might not get fixed this year or anytime soon. So you need to get and again, I think Will Reichard is the best kicker on the team.
Yeah,
so.
But punting is, I hear you, but this is punting now. This isn't kicking. This isn't trying to hit it through the uprights. This isn't trying to, I know there's technique involved as well, but with kickers, it is a much more mental game. Punting is something that to me is just about, it is about talent and technique, but we're not asking the kid to hit it 50 yards, but
I'll say this, as a former punter, and I punted in high school for 4 years, I can tell you, man, there are days when you're feeling it, and then there are days when you're not. And and even on the practice field, you can go out there and you're like, I am really hitting the ball well today. sometimes the snap might be off. Sometimes your placement might be off. Sometimes you might be getting pressured from a certain situation. You may have to deal with wind, and it was very windy Saturday at Texas A&M. And there was a lot of factors going in to just dropping back and kicking a ball. And you're having to think about a lot of things as a punter. And some guys process that information quicker than other guys do. So I'm just saying that right now his technique and all the things that you have to do as a punter, they haven't come together yet for him. I saw this kid kick in high school, and I thought he was outstanding. And we know what he's capable of doing. So is there room for improvement? Yeah. Is what he's doing right now a lot?
Yeah, I think what Tom's saying, though, Scott, and I agree with him, is what good does it do with 2 minutes left in the go in the game to get over there and jump on the kid after that? I think that's our point. I mean, I understand saying
I agree wholeheartedly.
You know,
it doesn't do any good at all. And I didn't punt in high school. I've stayed in Holiday Inn, but I'm not a punter. But it's obvious that the poor kid cannot punt and has never punted. And I just think it's shame on Saban for putting him out there, and even more shame on Coach Saban, as much as I respect him, for chewing the poor kid out because he can't punt. But anyway, make another comment to Scott real quick. I know we got people want to talk. I agree with you, Scott. You said earlier, football has just changed. And to think that Alabama's going to have these shutdown defensive games week after week, they might have one here or there. Right. Those days are gone. Those days are gone. You look at LSU. Who would have ever dreamed even 3 years ago that LSU would beat Florida 42-28? Florida would have 3 75-yard drives, get inside the 10 twice and not score. Defense, I don't know all the reasons. I'd like to hear what you think some of the reasons are, but defense is all but gone. And you just look for a defense that can stop somebody 2 or 3 times and hope for the best.
Totally agree.
Appreciate you taking my phone call.
Good, thanks, good to hear from you, Tom. Yeah, Scott, I think he's on to something. I've been saying that. I've been beating that drum all year. We're going to have to change the way we view defense with this particular offense that Alabama plays. And let's make a comparison here, Scott. You can play the way that Georgia does. And, I thought Saturday they were plenty good enough on defense to win that game. I mean, I thought they played well on defense. I mean, South Carolina had a pick 6. Georgia's defense kept them in the game. But when you play that way and your offense is struggling, it's hard to separate, even from a team that you're better than, and you let them hang around and you have a chance to lose the game, and they did lose. When you play the way Alabama does, you got a chance to run away from teams, and offensively. But at the same time, it is a different game. You're playing fast. There's more plays to be played. You have to judge defense differently. It's like I keep saying, Scott, and I know we have a little group text that we take part of during games, and SEC fans have made fun at the Big 12 and had fun at the Big 12's expense for a long time. When Oklahoma started playing fast, it wasn't their goal to give up 50 points in a game. It wasn't their goal. They were still trying to stop people. Things changed for them. And Alabama and a lot of the SEC teams, say what you want, it's just a lot of Big 12 football being played now. You play fast, you spread it out, you score a lot of points, and you give up some points. So that's just the reality of it. You hold somebody in the 20s when you score 47, that's plenty good enough.
It is. It should be. And as you said, Alabama and LSU this year are the two. They are the two best offenses in all of college football, and we're headed towards a pretty big game here in a few weeks. There's still a lot of football to go. But listen, the one thing about the SEC on this defensive side of the ball, there are more athletes playing defense in the SEC than any other conference, maybe outside the Big Ten. I think the Big Ten is where the SEC was offensively.
You're absolutely right, Scott. That is a great point. The Big Ten is still playing, for the most part, traditional football.
Yeah, they are, except for Ohio State. Ohio State's got that spread offense, but Wisconsin is run the ball, stop the run. That's what they're doing. Penn State is trying to open it up a little bit. They were in a war the other night, and their offense got slowed way down by a good Iowa defense. But the way Georgia played Saturday is that, and Gary, we've talked about this with Georgia. Georgia, the receivers, if people can stack the box against Georgia, they don't have receivers that can get separation like Alabama and Florida and LSU and maybe Missouri too. If you can't get separation, that's what cost Auburn a chance to win down in Gainesville. It could get separation when they needed to. Only a couple of plays did you do it. And you got to get consistent separation in your passing game to put up big numbers. And Georgia couldn't do that Saturday. And that was a bad matchup for them defensively. They were running the ball first to second down, kind of like one of our callers said earlier, and just got no production. And when it's 3rd down and 8 and 3rd and 9 and 3rd and 10, guess what happens? Jake Fromm, who's a great quarterback, those 3 picks, one for a pick 6, and guess what? You get beat at home. So the offenses that we're seeing now is because when your coaching staff finally looks at situations that have hurt them and go, you know what, we've got to change what we're doing on defense and on offense if we're going to go forward into the 21st century. And what did Alabama do? They started changing defensively a couple of years ago, Gary, getting away from 330-pound defensive linemen to 300-pound linemen that can run and linebackers that can go side to side, almost like safeties playing in the box. And when you do that, you give up a little size, and you also have an offense that's averaging 50 points a game. Man, your defense plays more snaps. You give up more points. So, and listen, Alabama's given up 3 touchdowns now to SEC opponents on their final drive of the game when the game is way out of reach. I'm not really concerned about that, Gary. I'm just not. When you're beating somebody and you're up 47-21 and you're trying to keep somebody out of the end zone late, or South Carolina gets the no-by-the-way touchdown, Ole Miss gets the no-by-the-way the touchdown, I don't worry about yards that come in garbage time. I worry about yards that come when it's a 28-21 game in the third quarter. That's what I worry about. I thought Alabama's defense played very well Saturday. 24 and 33 are starting to show up. Mm-hmm. They're starting to get healthy, Gary, and they hadn't been healthy in 2 years. Those guys are getting healthy, and the young linebackers now are figuring out where they are supposed to be. And on the defensive front, you found 4 or 5 guys now that can play in the rotation. I like the direction this defense is headed as you head to November right now.
All right, we got to get to our final break with Scott Moore. This hour of the Gary Harris Show being brought to you by the Alabama Credit Union. Visit alabamacu.com to learn more. Join today and feel good about your money. We touched on Georgia's issues with South Carolina. We're going to get into LSU and Florida. Of course, we're going to look ahead to Alabama and Tennessee. One more segment with Mr. iTalkSEC Radio, Scott Moore, coming up next here on the Gary Harris Show. Rocking out this morning on a Middle Monday, cranking it out. It's been busy. Let's touch on some. Let's touch on some other games. We may just have to hold you over for one more segment, Scott. I don't know if we're going to get everything in because I definitely want to get to Alabama, Tennessee. But let's touch on Saturday. You kind of talked about Georgia's performance a little bit. They struggled. There's no other way around it, and it was. I don't want to make more of it than it is because, as I said earlier this morning, it's hard to win them all. We've seen that even with Alabama, as great as they've been. It is hard to win them all. Georgia still has everything in front of it. It controls its own destiny. It wins out. It's going to the SEC championship game. It'll have a chance to play Alabama or LSU, probably maybe Auburn, and get into the playoff. But that was a disappointing, poor performance against the football team. Yes, South Carolina was motivated, but I guess the thing that struck me, Scott, was Georgia lost and South Carolina didn't play great. That's what concerns me if I'm a Georgia fan. We've seen Alabama lose before where the other team just played lights out and just did some things that – and South Carolina didn't do that. They didn't play great. They were on their third quarterback. They didn't – they struggled to throw the football. I mean, and they managed to win with an inferior team without playing great. That's what concerns me if I'm a Georgia supporter.
That's a good point. And listen, you should. I'm just going to say this is a blanket statement. You should never lose at home as a 24-point favorite to a team with a third-team quarterback. Ever, never. That is unacceptable. You don't get paid $7.5 million a year to do that. Okay, that is not supposed to happen. That should never happen. First of all. Secondly, South Carolina, I thought, first of all, their game plan was outstanding. Kirby and Will Muschamp know each other very, very well. But one thing about South Carolina that they did, they made a couple of big plays in the ball game. Helinski's touchdown pass got them back in it. It was 3-0, and then obviously the pick six was a huge play in the ball game. And here's the thing: Georgia was predictable on offense. They ran the ball up and down the field in the middle of the field all day long, trying to establish, almost in a hard-headed manner, trying to establish the run, going, we're going to run it. I don't care what the situation is. And the bottom line is, Gary, they could not run the football, and they needed to run it. And here's the thing that we saw out of Georgia Saturday. as the game went on, Georgia prided itself in physicality. We're the most physical team in the country, all this. You know what? They wilted in the third and fourth quarter. It wasn't South Carolina that wilted. It was Georgia that wilted on the offensive side of the ball. Reggie Kinlaw played great. They could not block him. And listen, the third-team quarterback came in who has played all of 20 snaps all season and kept the chains moving. They kept getting first downs. They kept making, keeping the Georgia offense off the field. So it was amazing to watch Will Muschamp coach that game. And we saw a lot of bad mistakes by both head coaches late. And it was kind of a comedy of errors that last 5 or 6 minutes. And Georgia made enough mistakes Saturday for a lifetime. But here's the problem for Georgia. You got 2 or 3 teams ahead of you that are better than South Carolina, okay? And they're also better than them on defense. Missouri's better on defense, Florida's better on defense, and Auburn is better on defense. If you can stop Georgia from throwing the football, you will beat them. So this is can they get it right? Yeah. Are they in trouble, though, right now moving forward? Yes, they are.
LSU and Florida, I got to watch that one pretty much in its entirety. I thought it was a fabulous college football game, Scott. It was entertaining to the very end. I thought the better team won, but the better team had to work hard to win. And Florida, had that. I think it took something out of them a little bit against Auburn. That was a really tough game. And then to not have all your weapons on defense against that offense caused some issues, but Florida was game. I got to give it to him. Dan Mullen's got that team headed in the right direction. But for LSU, it was a big test, I think, to play a team that can match you physically and still get 42 points on a really good defense. Even though Florida maybe, as we said, is a little bit better when they have everybody out there. A great game, big win for LSU. If they can beat Auburn, this Alabama LSU game looms as the game of the century part 2. We had a 9-6 overtime game in 2011. We may have a 52-49 overtime game this year, but we'll get to that in a moment. But LSU's performance against Florida, what did you think of it?
Well, you know what? A game went like I thought it would, Gary. My score prediction on Friday was 42-28 LSU. And look, I know it's lucky hitting the score like that, but I thought that's the way the game would go. And in the end there, Florida had a chance. You had to match them possession for possession. It's almost like a video game when you play LSU and Alabama. If you don't score on every possession and you get behind the 8 ball, then that's what happens to you. You get Jamar Chase late in the ball game, you're trying to get a stop. And instead of getting a stop, they get a big touchdown, and then all of a sudden you're down 14. But then Florida drove right back down the field. They were in the red zone, in the red area at the 2-yard line twice and came away with no points. And that was really the difference in the ball game. Those 2 trips inside the 5-yard line. And in the third trip inside the 5-yard line, you threw up a 50-50 ball at the goal line that Emory Jones got lucky getting off. I mean, Mullen said throw the ball up, and he did. So, they were down there 3 times inside the 5, came away with just 7 points. And at the end of the day, that was the difference in the ball game. Florida gave a great account of itself, and losing their 2 ends, especially Zanuga, in the fourth quarter really hurt them. They could not get any pressure on the edge. Listen, I thought their game plan was outstanding. I thought they slowed LSU down when they had to, but they also scored when they needed to too. But against LSU, you cannot get in the red zone and make field goals or try field goals. You got to score 7 points, Gary. And again, 3 trips inside the 10, you come away with only 7 points in the ball game, and that was the difference. And I'll tell you what, LSU's defense, they're young, and they break and they bend and all that stuff. But their quarterback Stingley and Delpit back there, really, really good in the secondary again.
Yeah, I'm telling you, this LSU team's a good football team. They're a really good team, and
they are.
I think they'll get in here undefeated. I do. I think this is going. November 9th is going to be
and number
epic.
one in the country too.
Yep, could be. Yeah, if they beat Auburn, there's a good chance. You're right. They'll jump Alabama. It could be reversed 1 and 2. LSU number 2 now. Alabama number 1. It might be different. Hey, we didn't even get to Bama and Tennessee, and I do want to talk about the big win for Jeremy Pruitt. Can you hang around for one more segment?
Yeah. Absolutely.
All right, Scott. We'll bring Scott back for one more segment just because we haven't even gotten to the third Saturday in October. Plus, a huge win for Jeremy Pruitt and a bad loss for Joe Moorhead. We'll get into that. The show is on the air. Hey, the Yankees had been playing lights out, clocked the Astros in Game 1 of the ALCS, but the Astros did what they had to do last night. In 11, they beat the Yankees 3-2 to even that series, 1 win apiece, although the Yankees have stolen home field away from the Astros. In the NL, the Nationals up 2 games on the Cardinals. Wow, having a hard time seeing this Nationals team doing what they're doing. I never saw this coming, to be honest with you. All right, hour number 2, we're kicking it off with another segment with Scott Moore because we just have scratched the surface of Bama, Tennessee. I see we got another caller waiting to talk to Scott. We'll get to that caller in a moment. But, Scott, first of all, the Tennessee win over Mississippi State. Huge win for Jeremy Pruitt. I mean, let's be honest. I mean, they're about ready to run him out of there. You're a 7-point dog at home. I did call this one, and you may have as well. I picked Tennessee outright. I'm just not. I don't have faith in Mississippi State to lay 7. But it was a big win for Tennessee, and it at least gives them a little spark and a little bit of momentum heading into the third Saturday in October matchup with Alabama here in Tuscaloosa this weekend. What did you see from Tennessee's performance in that game that maybe you had not seen in all these losses that had piled up?
Well, I thought they played really well on defense. They made a couple of key interceptions in the ball game, got some key turnovers in moments when they needed them, and they showed up in that game Saturday. I mean, coming off you played well for a quarter against, or two, for 3 quarters against Georgia, and then the game got away from you. And I was interested to see how they were going to respond physically. When you play Georgia and you play Alabama and you play teams that are much more physical and bigger and stronger than you, it seems to have an effect on you the next week. And I thought Jeremy had his team physically ready to go. But more importantly, he got them mentally ready to play an 11 o'clock game with Alabama the next week ahead. Tennessee, I don't think has covered the spread, and I've got to go back and look at the numbers. I'm not going to quote this one, but I can tell you it's in the ballpark. I don't think Tennessee has covered a number maybe only 15 times in the last 18, 19 years when they've had Alabama the next week. So he got them to come off. This was a sandwich game for you, coming off a big rival game last week, and then you got Alabama the next week, and guess what? They were able to focus in on what they needed to do Saturday and get a win. And listen, that's a major accomplishment when you just had your butt beat badly by Georgia in an emotional night game. You got to get ready, and then you get Alabama the next week. So give Tennessee credit for that, focusing on the task that they needed to have, a game they needed to win, that they must win. Because, listen, I'm with you. I didn't think Mississippi State could win that game. I picked Tennessee to win it and cover. They did. So Tennessee did what they needed to do Saturday, and that is a big step in the right direction for Jeremy Pruitt and that entire program.
Indeed it was. Of course, now it's what we call Tennessee Hate Week, and all the things that go with that. I said this earlier, Scott, and I want to get you to chime in because we're about the same age. In fact, I think we are pretty much the same age, 55, 56 range. And I remember when the Tennessee rivalry was huge, but I also remember Coach Bryant dominating them, winning 11 in a row, and then Tennessee broke the streak in 82 and won 4 in a row. Then it kind of went, Bama won 7 in a row. I think Tennessee won 6 or 7 in a row. So we've seen Tennessee be good, and we know that it's a huge rivalry. Most fans, though, let's say 40 and under, it's clear that Auburn's the biggest rival for Alabama in their minds. Now, Tennessee fans, or Alabama fans that are older than us, will argue to this day that Tennessee is still the biggest rivalry. But can you really call it Tennessee Hate Week when you've dominated and won 12 in a row, and as you said, most games haven't been close? I just have a hard time seeing Alabama fans building up a lot of hate for Tennessee. Now, if they win a game, that could change. But right now, this is just, Tennessee and Arkansas back-to-back. I don't sense much more excitement for Tennessee than I do for the Arkansas game.
Now, listen, since Nick Saban's come to Alabama, I mean, he's about to win his 13th straight over Tennessee. It's the longest stretch of futility for Tennessee in this series. I'm like you. I'm a historian of this conference. I love the history that this rivalry has. This is the favorite Saturday of the year for me personally, just because it goes back in my childhood 50 years ago. And I was brought up, like you were, that the Tennessee game was special because Alabama and Tennessee always measured itself against one another. Now, it's always been a streaky series, but it's also meant a lot because of when it's played, the third Saturday in October. These are still the two winningest programs in SEC history, at least up until this year they were. I think that may have changed, and Georgia may be the second winningest program now in the conference. But Tennessee has always been very, very good up until around 2008, and then the coaching change and everything that's happened. It's still an important game, though, to Alabama fans. It's an important game to Tennessee fans as well. Nothing would be more important to them than to have a chance to beat Alabama. Bottom line is they don't have the talent. They don't have the physicality. They don't have the athletes to go toe-to-toe for 60 minutes. But the goal this week for them, play well. Give a good account of yourself. Fight. And, you know what? I've seen Jeremy Pruitt install that into this team. Gary, they hadn't laid down against anybody this year. After that first game, they were terrible against Georgia State. No way to sugarcoat that. But we want, you look at teams and you go, can they compete this week? Will they compete for 60 minutes? And Tennessee's done that. They have competed. They hadn't won every game they played, obviously, but they've competed. They've given a good account of themselves. They'll come in and play hard Saturday. And listen, can they win the game? No, they cannot win the game. But it's how they play and the account that they give themselves Saturday is what the Tennessee fans want to see in this ball game. So I love this game. It's an important game to Alabama fans. You light up cigars for a reason. A lot of tradition, a lot of history in these kind of games, and you can never take anything away from that.
You can't. Tradition lives on. History lives on. Right now, it's not a competitive rivalry, but, if Tennessee gets good again and wins a couple, that will change. All right, let's go to the Bud Light Hotline powered by Adams Beverages. And it says on the screen, Josh and Eli have put in that Tom wants to commend Scott on his prediction. I don't know where this is going.
Gary, good morning again.
What about commending me on my prediction? I picked Tennessee to win the game outright. Are you going to commend me?
I kind of go with what you say, Gary. You're good at it. I'll compliment you on a lot of things. But I'm going to tell you this. If you have trouble hating Tennessee, let me give you a couple of keys like you would be on defense. Fat Phil and Tennessee stud. And let me tell you, if you have trouble hating Tennessee, conjure up those memories, and you will hate that puke orange when it rolls into town.
Tom, listen, those two names right there, those strike a chord with some Alabama fans all across the world.
That's exactly right. Keep them out there on the front burner. That's never an easy game. Kill them every time you can. Thank you, Coach Saban, for 12 years of dominance. I love you for it. But, Scott, I want to tell you, I wanted to apologize to you. Before the season started, you were saying Florida is going to make a lot of noise in the East. And by God, I tell you what, it's turning out you're right. And I didn't see it, but I wanted to tell you that was a great call you made concerning Florida in the preseason. Do you agree, Gary? He called.
Well, he did, and I got to tell you though this, and Scott knows this. And I, after the Miami game, I was wondering. I picked Florida to win the East.
You did?
I did, and the SEC media day. Sure? No, I did. Now, listen, I don't know that they will, but because Scott and I talked about it.
It looks better today than it did yesterday.
Yeah, I mean they're in it, but I just even though I think Georgia's a heck of a program, I think the mistake Tom and Scott. And I'm going to let you comment on Scott coming on Florida. But I think the problem with Georgia is they were close 2 years in a row, and I think their fans just kind of assumed, well, we've been close, so it's like it's granted that they're going to get back. And I just think sometimes you get close, like Mark Richt did, and you don't kick the door in, and there's no guarantees that you'll get back. But Scott, yeah, you've been saying all along, as Tom correctly stated that Florida could make some noise in that division, and they certainly have. And still, I think, and I know Missouri's lurking, I still think the winner of the Florida-Georgia game will go to Atlanta.
Yeah, Missouri's going to be a problem for a lot of people moving forward. But, listen, Florida had the pieces on defense. We talked about that was the main reason is defensively, and they had great receivers too. And you thought it's year two, and Mullen won 10 games last year. That was where it was kind of had gotten lost in the mix. This was a 10-win team that they had a very favorable schedule. Remember, we kept saying they got to go to LSU, and they didn't win that game, and that was the game we thought that they might lose. But they got Florida and Georgia on a neutral field. They got to go to Missouri now, and to me, they're going to be favored in every game they play the rest of the way, minus maybe that Georgia game. Georgia will probably be a 1 or 2 point favorite down there in the cocktail party. But Florida is good enough right now with that defense and the way their offense has improved. I think Trask has just totally made this team a totally different team, and they're starting to play confident. Their tailback, Michael Piran's come along, but their receivers have played very, very well. If their offensive line can continue to get better, and they had some problems with their tackles the other night, but if they can continue to get better and get their defense healthy, I want to tell you, man, they got a great chance to beat Georgia down in the cocktail party.
Well, I'll tell you what, Scott, something else you said in the predicting category that's interesting to me is based on body of work, LSU rolls into Tuscaloosa. If they're undefeated, based on their body of work, they're going to be ranked number one in the nation. Thank you, Lord.
Yes, they will.
It could happen, yeah, no doubt.
Yeah,
no doubt.
They will.
Yeah, I really hope that happens.
Yeah, I think, listen, I don't think that's a scenario that would really please a lot of LSU fans. I think they're happy that they're number two right now. But, listen, you don't want to be number one in the country going into Bryant-Denny Stadium. It reminds me very much of what happened a couple of years ago when Leonard Fournette and LSU rolled in. They were number two in the country. Fournette was on his way to the Heisman, and what happened?
Killed him.
We all remember. Yeah, and we all remember. But this is going to be this game here is shaping up, if everybody handles their business, to be absolutely epic because everybody wants to see offense. They want to see fireworks. And these are two teams you've never seen that out of, especially when they play each other. So it's shaping up. Listen, there's no doubt in my mind right now that LSU and Alabama are two of the four best teams in all of college football. There's anybody that's watched the game this year cannot deny that.
Thank you, Tom.
Great. Yeah, great job, guys.
Appreciate it. Good to hear from you always. Hey, Scott, let me ask you this before we close it out. Keep it fairly short. Any concern for LSU this week? You just came off the huge win against Florida. You got Auburn next week at home. You got the bye. You got Alabama lurking. And you go to Mississippi State, who I think is a bad football team.
They are bad.
You know, sometimes you see these things. Mississippi State maybe playing for their coach's future, coming off an embarrassing performance at Tennessee. Any concern that LSU could get caught napping a little bit?
Well, they got caught napping there 2 years ago, and got absolutely destroyed the last time they went over to Stark Vegas. But I don't think that's going to happen this time. Mississippi State's not good enough offensively or defensively. You know, Kansas State went over there and pushed them around. Kentucky, went over there and moved the ball on them. Now, the LSU is going to score when they want to, but they're going to put up 49, 50 points in the ball game, get out of the house and get back to Baton Rouge and get ready for Auburn. So I don't see any way on earth that game's even close over Stark Vegas.
All right, great stuff from Scott Moore. Fill the listeners in on man. I can't even keep up with all the stuff that you're doing on the radio, but clue us in real quick.
Well, hey, we'll be on Jay's show today, 12 to 2. Then iTalkSEC 4 to 6, and yeah, it's been busy, man. But Gary, like I always say, man, it is always an honor and pleasure to be with you guys on Monday. Tidal 100.9 is an awesome station. And it's great to be on with you, buddy. You got a great program, a ton of respect out there, brother.
All right, thank you, bro. Good to catch up.
Yes,
Scott
sir.
Moore here. Follow him on Twitter at iTalkSEC. All right, before we get to the break, I want to tell you about Patterson-Comer